Okay.
All right, just so everyone knows we're being live streamed, so
All right.
just for everyone's information.
Okay. Well, perfect. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the Virginia Museum of Natural History Strategic Planning Committee meeting to order. And appreciate everyone joining us today. And before we begin, I want to make sure I've acknowledged everyone in the room there. So I've got Joe, Tim, Jennifer, Jonathan, Ryan. Am I missing anybody? Okay.
Lisa.
No.
What? Okay. And Zach, of course, is helping us as well with live stream. So appreciate that. And we'll jump right in. So the first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from our November 5th meeting. You've received those in advance. And if, well, are there any corrections or updates? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Can I second it?
You absolutely can.
But here's Steve. Melanie, Steve Powers is our new
Oh,
VMNH Foundation director who is representing the foundation on this committee. Hey, Steve, how you doing?
Good. How are y'all?
All right. I don't know that you've had a chance to meet everyone.
I don't think so.
Yeah, so I'll pass it over to Melanie Clark, who's our board chair, and then maybe we can kind of go around the Zoom windows so folks have a chance to introduce themselves.
perfect. Sure. So Steve, nice to meet you electronically.
You
We've
too.
chatted some. Thank you for participating and being here with us and stepping up. We really appreciate it. We always look for good ways to communicate and connect with the foundation. And so I will pass it to Lisa so that she can introduce herself, and then Kathy.
Hey, Steve, Lisa Carter, longtime board member, about to roll off actually. Great board. I think you're gonna love interacting with us. Dominion, I work at Dominion for 22 years. That's it. That's me. Thanks.
Hi, Steve. I'm Kathy. I live in Hayes, which is in eastern part of the state. I used to live in Danville. I've retired from teaching there, and I've been serving on the board for about a year now.
Steve, you want to have a chance just to introduce them to your background and so forth?
Sure. I'm Steve Powers. I'm a biology professor at Roanoke College, and my background is freshwater fishes and streams. Definitely done some museum work here and there. Wouldn't call myself an expert in museum work, but have some background in it for sure.
Cool. And just incidentally, we've had a long relationship with Roanoke College. In fact, we'll be traveling up there to meet with current and former members of the foundation board to find further ways to kind of, cross-pollinate and so forth.
Great.
It's a long tradition. So.
Sounds great.
All right. And Joe, I'm pretty sure Steve's toured and been, but I don't know if you want to introduce the folks in the room with you.
I'll just let the folks go right around the
Okay.
tables. You already know Ryan.
Hey, Steve. Yeah, Ryan Barber. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Steve, we met previously. Jonathan Martin here, CFO here at the museum.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Whitlow. I'm the one that emails you a lot.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tim King. I'm facility manager here.
Nice to meet you.
All right. Well, Steve, again, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
I may have to leave a little early. We've got an award ceremony that starts at 4, and I've got to do some setup beforehand. So if we go all the way up to 4, I'll have to leave early.
Okay.
Heads
Well,
up, just a heads up.
Okay. Well, no worries. When that time comes, feel free to just exit out.
Will do.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course.
All right. So I've got a motion and a second on our minutes, and all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. So now we're going to move into a review of our strategic goals and key initiatives. I'm happy to walk us through each section, and we will just pause as needed for discussion, or feel free to just chime in. And we are going to begin with the Young Explorers Center.
Yeah, we've got some slides, Melanie.
Oh, fabulous.
We'll go ahead and, hey, you said you like pictures, right? So, so do you want to bring that up, Ryan? So we're going to share screen here. Yep. All right, so each staffer here has got a different bit of responsibility. So I'll let Ryan start out our discussion.
Yeah, so just a kind of a high level overview of where we're at with the Young Explorer Center. So of course we are going to transform our current special exhibit hall into the Young Explorer Center, and our former library will be the new special exhibit gallery. So what you see here on the screen is a picture of the former library space, future temporary exhibit space. We had the shelving removed, which was kind of the kickoff to the capital construction work. And so with that, we are going to replace the flooring. So that's all in process. We have contracts in place both for flooring, but also for LED track lighting for that room as well. So with it being an exhibit space, we want to, of course, have good lighting. We want it to be LED to match with the environmental priorities here at the museum. So exciting work there. So with that, we are well on the way for planning. So we've had several ideation sessions, and Lila Doherty, our new exhibit projects manager, she's been instrumental in the planning process and kind of helping us along, but also key staff here. So everybody in this room has had a role in the planning. So we've had the ideation sessions, looking at themes, unifying content, how do we bring it all together, how do we transform the space into what we want it to be. We've also, key staff have done site visits. So there have been visits to other museums with early childhood education spaces to get what works for them, see what they have, talk to the staff, get the honest feedback. We've also done constituent interviews. So Lila Doherty again and our education staff and other staff talking to parents. So as parents are here for education programming, homeschool programming, whatever it may be, what do they want to see? So we've had good discussions there as well. And just early collaboration with potential vendors. So we've done several demos, talked to providers of technology or interactives, whatever it might be. So it's really good to get a feel of what's out there and what we have to work with, and hopefully marry all this together: the themes, the content, the interactives themselves. And so schedule wise, we're well on track. So our current temporary exhibit, Age of Dinosaurs, closes July 26th. At that point, that space will become the Young Explorer Center, obviously for opening in 2027. So the next Waterways exhibit opens in August. That will be the first special exhibit in the new special exhibit gallery, which is of course the former library space. So from now until July, it's going to be further prep work. And then hopefully in July, August, we're going to see more movement on the Young Explorer Center once it becomes what it's going to be. So we're still on track for 2027 opening. We don't have a specific date yet. We're kind of keeping that flexible, but I think we're well on the way. And of course, with that, we have the Petra exhibit, which even though it's a separate project, it's all interrelated as far as space and planning and work. So a lot of good stuff coming up. And the broad goal is to have a staggered opening with both Petra and Young Explorer Center in 2027. So yeah, I think we're in good shape.
And I'd like to ask the question, what do you guys think was the most common answer that parents are telling us about what the new space should, what's going to be important about the new space? What should we include, or how should we approach it, or something like that? Anyone want to take a stab in the dark?
A place for parents to sit.
Well, that has come up for sure. Yeah, and we are planning that with cell phone charging apparatus and so forth. So yeah. Melanie, you just unmuted. I'm going to make you take a guess.
Well, if I've listened to Jennifer, well, it was storage.
Well, I don't know. We're going to have storage for sure. But believe it or not, I don't know about believe it or not, but one thing that has, two things that actually come up. One is minimal screens, right? They don't want this to be like an arcade. And then the second thing is open-ended play. So to give the kids tools to play, but don't make them go through like goal-oriented stuff, like you have to hit a certain level of performance to achieve something, right? They want it open-ended, so the kids have to invent. They have to be inventive in terms of what activities they're going to do. So we're going to see a mix of that. We're definitely going to have some of that open-ended play with science lessons behind everything, but at the same time, too, there will be just some of the things that are, going to be maybe a little more goal-oriented. But so it should be a healthy mix. Jennifer, you got anything else to add since you've been kind of in the middle of all of it?
No, it's a very exciting time. We've seen lots of really interesting things, and we've got some ideas. So looking forward to it.
There won't be much in there in August because it'll have just been emptied out the month before. But it might be interesting for the board just to take a walk over real quick and just to see the space. And we can actually have prepped a rough diagram of space utilization for various areas and so forth. But what I hope to impress upon the board is how quickly we're going to run out of space, right? That's all there's to it. And that's the way it is with almost all exhibits. But, once we start putting in some of our areas of activity, it's like it just gets eaten up fast. So when you go in there with nothing in there, it looks like a giant space. Mm-hmm. But once you start adding interactives and stuff, it runs out fast. So cool. Does anybody have any questions on Young Explorer Center or anything else they want to know about it in terms of its product?
Is that post in the picture going to be a problem? It seems like it's in the middle of the space.
So this will be.
No, I understand.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, this will be the future temporary exhibit space, and it will be a consideration, but we actually see it as an opportunity. We can do some graphics on it. We can plan out the exhibits accordingly. But the great thing about the Young Explorer Center space is it is open with no obstructions, no posts.
And the posts can actually be utilized to create, which is something we struggle with today. But like because right now we have the dinosaur, you almost go into a maze to start with, and you exit in kind of a little maze. That's kind of a lot of work. When you have these vertical columns, they actually help with creating some structure within an exhibit area. So yeah, it's going to be a consideration, but it can also be an advantage for us. There's two of them, by the way. This picture only shows one.
Very good.
All right. Should we move on to the next section, Melanie?
Sure, yes. Douglas Avenue.
Yeah. It's Mike. Hey, with all the progress going on here at Starling, we are also working with Douglas to bring it back up to speed. Some of the things that we've done, we've had several site visits from our A&E firm to come in, and it was determined that there's asbestos over there, so we had an asbestos abatement walk through last week. So we're just waiting back from the firm to hear the next steps with the asbestos. Then we're going to move on. Next steps will be our environmental controls, which is our chiller and our boilers going forward. And once we get that completed, then we'll go to next steps. But so far, everything is really on pace. I'm gonna try to push the architectural firm to move it up, speed it up a little bit if we can, possibly. But we're at their mercy when we're working with A&E firms, because they got a lot of projects themselves.
Yeah, and I want to revise my slide here where it says physical work to begin fall 2026. That's to do with the HVAC specifically. The asbestos abatement should happen sooner than that. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And it's not a big job. It's all tile, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and it's not a lot of it. So that was really good for us. And one thing we ought to start thinking about is, we've always in our history just referred to it as the Douglas Avenue building because it exists in Douglas Avenue in Martinsville, Virginia. But it can be a naming opportunity where we might give it a proper name and a christening. So I think it's worth thinking about at this point. And when that building becomes fully operational as an off-site collection storage facility, that be a good time to maybe honor a past board member or maybe something. Refer to something historic about the museum's history or something like that. So we've got a few ideas we can share with you, so, but I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire here today. So just kind of planting the seed, as they say at this point. So actually, it's related. So let's go to the next slide.
I was just going to add too, I don't know if there's any former connections with who went to school there or was a principal or whatever.
Yeah, that's a good idea. There's still plenty of people here who remember going to school there, and they're happy to share those memories with you, right? But yeah, these are all things I think we need to consider to come up with an effective way forward. So
Maybe somebody who donates gets to name it.
it's not a bad idea.
I thought that was assumed, sorry.
Well, we never really anticipated a capital campaign for Douglas Avenue. I mean, we are going to have needs for collection storage and so forth. So that might be an opportunity, or it doesn't have to be a direct donation to the Douglas Avenue facility itself. It could be a donation to the museum, which then gets reflected in having their name on the collection support center or whatever we end up naming it.
We also have several donors that are we track their cumulative giving, lifetime giving. So we have several that have done really well to support the museum over the years. It might be an opportunity.
Yeah, we can start pulling all that together and continue. It's going to be a couple of years before we need to do this, but I do think it's worth considering. So thank you. Related, and this is not directly in our strategic plan, but I just want to bring you up to speed. And the new board member, Dick Bratcher, those of you who know him, he is the former vice president for facilities at Longwood University. So because he has all this experience, he started asking, some really, kind of detailed questions about the building and its operation. And he had suggested that he could put together a template which could be a building maintenance strategic plan. And the timing's good because what we've noticed is next year in March of 2027, this building here turns 20 years old, believe it or not, right? And as such, we can't call it the new building anymore because we've already had to do a lot of maintenance on it and so forth. And so Dick has helped put together, this is just a couple screenshots from some extensive work that he's done and is working with Tim on this. And I'll let him talk about kind of the next steps, what they're going to do to make this a reality, is basically to come up with an anticipatory plan that is basically based upon how much of a lifespan we think everything from equipment to roofing to whatever it may be has, and to plan things out years in advance so we can see things coming. Whereas in these last 19 years, it's been reactionary. Something went bad. Now we have to replace it. Oh, these belts have to be replaced. They're squeaking, right, or whatever it may be. So, yeah. Tim, what do you think next steps with Dick will be?
Dick and I will get together and we'll go over his maintenance inventory list, the workbook, and we'll start plugging in equipment and numbers. And this will help us, as Joe said, to see how old our equipment is, where our needs are before stuff starts breaking down, given the age of the building. So I think this is going to be very helpful for us for the maintenance department.
So from the staff to the board, we recommend that this should be a point of discussion at the strategic retreat May of next year, because that'll be 2 years into the strategic plan. And what we traditionally do is identify opportunities that we could not see earlier, or to address problems that come up that, again, were not present at the beginning of this planning session. So we'll continue to update the facilities committee. This will be part of the discussion at the board meeting in May. So, but this is something that I think we should take a hard look at to kind of include it with our guiding star, that is the strategic plan.
Well, that was great, by the way. That looks awesome.
Yeah, Oh yeah, it's yeah. I mean I know Dick is highly experienced and probably had a lot of documents to draw on, but he did so much. You know, it was really a nice bit. And so with this slide here, this just shows the layout of the VMNH Waynesboro trailer as far as the updated exhibits. So just refresh memories. We sent our trailer off to be refurbished. Because of its age, it was decided that fully refurbishing it into a mobile unit is just not feasible. It would have been cheaper to buy a brand new one. So they've cleaned it up, they've spruced up parts of it. It's in better working condition now. They're going to set it up as a stationary unit back in Waynesboro. In fact, we take possession of it tomorrow. So Tim and Jonathan will be going up there to sign for it. And then next week, a team will go up to reinstall exhibits in time for the community's big River Fest. But the reason I'm bringing this up here is that, you know, here in the near future, you know, I mean, we're going to have basically 4 aging structures. Our Starling Avenue facility turns 20 years old. Over at Douglas Avenue, that's a 1929 school building, but behind it is the annex, which is a slightly newer building. That's spoken for. It's in good shape and it houses geological specimens exclusively, right? But then add on to that the upkeep and management of the exhibit trailer up in the Shenandoah Valley. So a plan like Dick is helping us put together is going to be something that help us keep track of all of these ongoing projects. So that's our update on Douglas Avenue, and then lumping into that this new avenue of pursuit with the building strategic plan. Cool, all good? All right, we've got a couple more points here. I'll take this one. One of our strategic points is to connect research and collections to contemporary issues. So for people to better understand why we do what we do, what are the benefits? Sometimes that's difficult when we talk about describing new species of millipede. How do you connect that to the average person, right? But we have been looking at storylines and trying to tell stories about the work that the curators are doing. So when you look on the left, that's Marshall Boyd at the top, using a chainsaw to cut off a beaver stump for further analysis back at the museum. And below is visiting scholar Dr. Colin Van Buren. He's holding one of those beaver stumps that got harvested. He's using basically tree coring techniques to determine the time of activity as sort of a pilot project on what these beavers are doing. And I know what he's looking at is looking at how proper beaver management in forested communities can help actually become a mitigating factor for forest fires and so forth. So I think we're seeing a story develop here that we can tell with a beginning, middle, and end that connects our research and collections to contemporary issues. And related, we have just a screenshot from one of the rapid reports that the Cultural Heritage Monitoring Lab puts out. So this is a palace that got damaged during the Civil War in Sudan. So this is available through the Smithsonian site's called Figshare. And when you go to the Figshare site, you can just type in, if you want to see what the CHML is doing, just search for Bassett and a litany of their work will come up. But this, again, has been a very positive way to tell the story of research and collections by connecting to contemporary issues. So, yeah, you want to move on to the next part? This is yours, Ryan.
Yeah, so VA 250, of course, it's going to be a year-long celebration, but we've had lots of activity. So we kicked things off last year with a VTC, a Virginia Tourism Grant, specifically for VA 250. So that was a $10,000 grant to do a variety of things, including publication, the case itself you see in the picture, but also things like marketing and signage. And that was supplemented by a nice gift from Randy and Martha Rollins. Randy serves on our foundation board, and they've been a good sponsor of the exhibit or the program as well. So some of the activities, we of course have the VA 250 exhibit. That's both in the lobby, but also in the Hall of Ancient Life. With that, we have first English edition of Notes on the State of Virginia. So you can see in the picture there. That's on display, and it's in a case that was purchased with funding from the grant. So it was probably the most expensive case we've ever purchased, but it's got UV protection, nice LED lighting, and all the things that the book deserves. So that was exciting. We also did a special VA250 edition of Virginia Explorer. So that came out in January. I think everyone's probably seen a copy of it. We're really proud of that. And then we had a February 19th VA250 event for our members and donors, very successful. And finally, we've got year-long branding and sponsor recognition for the Virginia Tourism VA250 grant on all of our large events, all of our festivals, making it a year-long celebration. So the grant is open. We'll submit the final report probably in November, but that's going to include all the visitation from festivals and all the different activities we've done. But so far, it's been a great success, and the tourism folks are really happy with the results. So, anybody else have any?
I was just going to say the tourism folks and even the former Secretary of Natural Resource, former Secretary of Education was very appreciative that a science institution could find an angle to participate in this. So it certainly got us some goodwill to participate. Also point out that in, I think it's October, is that when Suzanne comes? Mm-hmm. We're going to announce a date for October where Appalachian artist Suzanne Strike will come for a 2-day visit. So during the evening, she's going to give a presentation. She had received a grant from Virginia Humanities to travel around the Commonwealth to all the places that Thomas Jefferson wrote about in Notes of the State of Virginia, and she created custom artwork for each of the locations and connects the audience through artwork to what Thomas Jefferson observed during his lifetime. And so, unfortunately, she sold all the art, so she was very successful, right? But she says she has other artwork that can help illustrate the point. So she's going to come and we're going to set up a little gallery for her. She's going to give a public talk, do a book signing, and then the next day she's going to do a workshop, an art workshop for our homeschoolers. So we'll be covering some art SOLs on that day. So yeah, so the celebration continues. I think we got one more. So one last thing that we'll highlight in this strategic planning meeting regarding the continued pursuit of our strategic plan is our guiding star. First of all, with staffing and professional development, the foundation is voting on its new upcoming budget, and as such, within there is a continued line item to help offset the cost of staff professional development. So this could be conference travel, training, or a class. Anything along those lines, and the staff really appreciated it, and I think they used it all up.
They did, and a lot of staff would leverage it. So if they have other existing funds, those funds can help supplement and add to what they have. So.
Yeah, it's been a good leverage for further money for sure. And the reason I've got a picture of our uncooperative king snake, you can just see him right in the center there. You see the red, black, and white band. Unfortunately, I got in trouble for tapping on the glass, so the snake would not come out for a photograph. This is just representing the fact that Dr. Jackson Roberts will start with us just a couple of months. So this will be our part of the strategic plan where we're attracting and retaining quality staff. So we're excited to have him here. He's already bought a house, so can't beat that. So look forward to having him as part of the team. So kind of related to our strategic plan, but kind of a supplemental, I do have one other point here, which is going to lead to some homework for our boards. So go to the next slide here. So you've heard me talk about this before. I just showed this picture because, I mean, you see, I don't know what on your screens you can see because, with all the squares that have everyone's heads in it might be blocking part of the picture. But there's just a point that was really busy. And it was busy doing nothing pertaining to science. It was just operation, right? So we had our lifts out. There's a rental lift out there. There were contractors. We've taken down the dinosaur decal out front because one, it's just aged out. But two, we're going to replace it with a different graphic here in the near future. And there's just a lot that's going on. So, you all know that our appropriation has not grown a lot. It has grown in the last decade and a half, but it hasn't grown a lot. And as such, we exist in an environment where expenses for everything are increasing. We all know that on a personal note as well as a professional note. And I'm not going to settle on that because Jonathan's got a couple of illustrative slides to show. And so we currently have a $3.78 million appropriation. I'm saying we probably need 5 to 10% more to operate, right? So you can see the numbers there. It's not a lot of money, but to us it would be transformative, and you'll begin to see why when Jonathan shows his slides. So what I'm going to ask the board to take on, and staff will be behind the scenes doing all the work, preparing the documents, setting the appointments, and so forth. We need the board to work with Delegate Phillips here. Stephen, Lisa, and Kathy. Delegate Eric Phillips is our local delegate. He's been instrumental in getting us some funds in the past. Last time was to increase our salary budget to take care of our lowest paid staff and bring them up to something approaching market value. So we'll do that, but we need to start right after the next board meeting. So that way we can talk about having an effective request for a budget adjustment in the next fiscal year, and maybe more realistically and strategically, a budget adjustment going into the next biennium. So, but we do need to start the conversation soon before we fall behind, because by August stuff's going to start to wrap up. Stuff's going to start to ramp up for the 2027 General Assembly session. So, Jonathan, you want to share your slides? You hit escape, Ryan? Go to the lower right, go by Melanie's head, just below it to the lower left.
Okay.
Oh, I see. You can use either one.
All right, so just kind of the never-ending budget discussions here.
John, I'm sorry. Before I run, I do think that this is a strategic question. The reason I wanted to bring it up here, we're going to do the same kind of presentation for the Finance Committee as well. But I just thought since I have all of you here, we may as well start the conversation. So I want to make sure you don't think we're leaving them out at all.
Right. So I have to agree with Dr. Faber. This was a big topic of discussion at the strategic retreat in the Danville Science Center too. I think it's top of everybody's mind. Just general fund requests, just kind of giving a history and kind of moving forward on things. So historically, we have been requesting funds. You can see we're batting about 300 for our request. This is something that starts in August. So our budget analysts will reach out and just say, hey, it's time, to start requesting general funds. Of course, this goes through the Secretary of Education now. So we start with the deputy secretaries, approval there, move on to the Secretary of Education, approval there, and then that gets to the governor's desk. So what you see in the requested section, all that has made it through that process. That is not all inclusive of everything we've requested over the past 5 or 6 years here, but that's what's made it to at least a budget committee level decision. So I think that's good. I think we've had some success with Delegate Phillips, certainly in the 24-26 timeframe. That was a member request. So if we don't make it past the governor, if we don't get introduced to the governor's budget in December, we do lean on our delegates, and the team here, as well as the board of trustees, has been helpful in the past. But as Dr. Kyber mentioned, it's getting ready to ramp back up. Yeah. And of course, this fiscal year coming up is still pending the budget discussions. This is something we just kind of put together, just a comparison for agencies. Yeah, sorry. Just kind of blacked out the names to protect the innocent here. It's not about paring their budget down. It's about building up our budget. So just, it's not salary based. This is support for the independent agencies. So you see your O1 general fund is state dollars given to the agency annually through the appropriated. So that's part of the budget process. That is their base operating budget. No amendments. That's what the governor puts out every December 15th or so. That's what you'll see. So big numbers. I think taking the metric of a number of staff and dividing it by the general fund kind of just gives you an idea of the support going to these agencies. O2 special revenues, obviously that would be like festivals for us. Enterprise is kind of a third party. It's outside the agency. So if there's maybe a satellite facility, or I'm not saying they're in this list, but the Library of Virginia receives, I think it's $3 on every home sale in the state of Virginia to record the deeds. So they're permanently recorded. So that kind of all factors in. But again, taking the metric of taking the general funds and then dividing those by the number of O1 full-time positions kind of gives you an idea of support. So we've got some chats.
Yeah, hang on.
No worries.
Let's see here. Oh, you don't see the new slides?
I think Kathy can see them either.
Yeah, please. I don't see new slides. I don't either. How is that possible? Hey, are you guys not seeing the slides still?
I'm seeing slides.
Steve,
Seeing the old slides, what I'm seeing right now is the future of the VMNH appropriation, and they're showing.
Quick adjustment, and then we'll continue on.
Maybe stop sharing. Completely.
Which one do you want to show, Jonathan? Which one is here?
The one on the right.
The one on the right?
Yep.
Okay, so let me.
I think that's everything.
Okay, so I closed out everything.
All right. It's going to be on the left-hand side, underneath, to the right, yep, right there, VMNH.
Slide 30. Yeah, back on. Okay. Hang on 1 second. All right, do you see slides?
No. Yes.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Okay, now I do.
See slide says market comparison.
Yes.
There we go.
So, right. So, basically, hang on, I'm trying to share. Here we go. All right, it's all yours.
All right. So we can jump back to the previous slide. You guys, so this is the just general fund request that we were talking about earlier, and here's what we received. That in 300 starts going through the process as I was speaking, goes to the Secretary of Education first, into the governor's office, and then if it doesn't make it there, then we go through the delegates, Eric Phillips and Bill Stanley for this particular area of Virginia. Okay, so this is the market comparison. It's numbers threw together, blacked out the names to protect the innocent. Just kind of an overall, just showing support. The far right column is the appropriation divided by the O1 staffer. So the number of full-time employees divided by the appropriation. This doesn't correlate to salaries. This just is kind of support for those agencies. So we are continually requesting, as Dr. Faber brought it up before, 5 to 10% increase in our general appropriation, just to kind of get us back to those market levels that we would have seen back in 07, 08, before we had the general fund reduction.
Well, basically, the argument here is that we're a deal. You know, we're running our operation at $90,000 per staff member, whereas, you know, I mean, it's a pretty significant jump for most of the other agencies compared here. And these are, again, we're in a live thing. We don't really want to be talking about, you know, other specific agencies, but the point is here, we tried to find some that were in various ways comparable, either to our mission, to our market, or whatever. You know, and so I think we have some good reason to ask for increased funds because we're being asked to run a pretty significant operation at a cost much lower than what other agencies do. And yeah, so there you have it.
And it's definitely everything falls under the education secretariat in this slide. So it's all education based.
So go ahead and bring the talking heads back. Yeah, that'll work. So I know we're showing this stuff to you cold here. What's unclear to any of you about this, as far as this analysis goes? All right. Okay. Well, we're gonna make these, you know, kind of quantitative and qualitative arguments that we'll put together to provide for the finance committee and the executive committee as well. So that would begin to plan out what is the message that we want to bring across and what's the justification. And I think just as importantly, what's the what will be the outcome? What can we do? What are we doing for the Commonwealth? With these extra funds, we have to have all that. Another thing that I want to also point out, as far as, and I'm open to suggestions on this, but something that strikes a chord with me. I've asked our fiscal office to break down the various other businesses that we work with that help with building maintenance, or anything else that has to do with our operation, right? Because there's a considerable amount of money that flows out of our appropriation to other businesses in our area, right? So that makes us part of an economic engine here. And we want to make sure that people will see that we have these various businesses that part of the reason they're thriving is, well, in part because of us. So I think we can effectively make that argument as well. So that's something that I fully believe that we need to start the conversation with right after the May board meeting. And Dr. Clark, I'll turn things back over to you.
Okay. Well,
I had a question. So I'm just making sure I'm reading this right. It is hard, like, to just see it quickly, but part of the question, is it not just who has more funding, but who has the most control or how they are generating it and being able to use it?
No. And I think most important columns here are the '01 general fund, right? So you see they're all over the map in terms of how much money the state provides to them. And then when you take the number of staffers that they have, we're simply providing, what it costs to run. Well, what we spend to run our operation compared to other agencies when we try, it's hard to compare apples and oranges. So,
Right.
why do we get 3.7 million versus the agency right above gets 1.4, right? I don't know the answer to that question, but when you look at and see by kind of dividing it by the number of full-time positions, you begin to see a comparison that you can do apples to apples.
yeah, it's a baseline metric. Obviously, operating costs, your personnel costs are going to be your highest. So you got your benefits and your costs. So it's just a good metric to show that kind of support.
Yeah. We'll also email these out to you. So if you want to take a second look at them and see what you think.
I think having the data to support our arguments is always helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Speaking of data, let's go to the last slide here.
Oh, I forgot there's another slide.
So just the percentages increase. So some of our services are state provided services. So it's like an agency to agency. There's other, obvious membership costs, and there's some others out there, but you can see that just the attorney general fees, is 293% up from 2000 from fiscal year 21 to 25. And then, payroll and HR processing costs, also 471. So that's just the implementation of the new accounting software. But those numbers, it's an aggregate number that gets passed on to the agencies of the Commonwealth. So us, as well as every other agency in the state, is seeing these increases. We were just this is part of that mix you would see in our request. So going back to that first slide, those requested numbers have some of this in there. But so far, from 2022, fiscal year 22 to current, we've only seen salaries and benefits make it through the General Assembly session.
And incidentally, just so you know, the Attorney General costs haven't increased 293% because we're behaving badly. It is simply that they changed the way they do business. I guess there was a certain amount of money that went directly from the state to the Attorney General's office to help with their operation. But then basically it was said, no, we're going to take that away from you. And now what you have to do is you have to charge by the hour the agencies that you help. So that's kind of just where we're at. So that, so you see right there, almost $90,000 just in the increase for that. That doesn't include, things like vehicles and transportation, fuel costs, costs of putting up an exhibit, all of those things. You begin to look at our operation, and we're paying more for everything. So, and the other bit of quantitative data is just look at the rates of inflation over that time period.
Yeah, this is trying to take inflation out. These are just services. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
right.
it's there's a lot more money on the table to be requested. All right. If there's no questions, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here so we can move on. All right. Okay.
So that brought us to point 3 of our agenda, Melanie.
Okay, yes, thank you for that. And so right now, I think it's, let's see, update on the VMNH Foundation support.
So, right.
Yep. So, like Joe said, we're working on the budget with the foundation board. So this is going to be the operating budget for the coming year. But overall, just finished the advancement report through the third quarter. So everything's looking great. Of course, the endowment, we've all talked about that, but as of March 31st, it topped 6 million combined. So that's great news. We've of course got the general endowment, the Hennica Fund, the Hoffman Fund, and the Boyso Research Fund. So those are all not only growing but making an impact. So we're going to announce some exciting Hennica support coming up. That's what it's meant for. So yeah, across the board, I think we don't want to rest on that. We're working with the foundation board to target everything. So we're looking at memberships, annual funds, of course, corporate and grants, things like that. But with the endowment now, we're able to think bigger. So we're using those funds hopefully to leverage other grants and partnerships, including the Young Explorer Center. So we're targeting a few grants coming up that hopefully we can use the endowment funds for leverage on that. So I'd say overall we're great, great relationship, great momentum. We appreciate their support, and I think good communication. So we want to build on that and continue it.
Yeah, I agree. And so the chart that Jonathan shared, and I know those are data points we've talked about, and I've shared that with the foundation as well. I think if there's some way to include that, I mean, I'm happy to do it at their next meeting, but just to include that or share that with Tyler ahead of time, just as a reminder, as to why we, continue to advocate for an increase, at the state level. Because the solution is not just to start writing checks for personnel, because then we would have no money, in the foundation. This is something the state, in my opinion, should address.
I agree. The easiest synopsis is that if you look at just the average inflation over the last nearly 20 years now, when this building first opened, and you look at what the appropriation was back then, it would be equivalent to, roughly speaking, around $5 million today. So, but we're running this operation for $3.7 million. So we're actually running it less. We're running this operation for less than what we did back when this building opened in 2007. So.
Are the other agencies that the names weren't shared, are they all in proximity to Richmond or not necessarily?
All over the state.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Okay. If you said that, I apologize.
No, it's all good. So we selected them because there were various comparisons, like to either mission or size or geography.
Okay, so we'll move into well, first, thank you, Ryan. We'll move into open discussion. If there's anything we haven't covered, concerns, ideas, or anything, Lisa or Kathy you'd like to share, certainly welcome that.
I have an idea that's a little random, so bear with me if that's okay.
Sure.
It has been all over the news. Fire risk has increased in Virginia, right? It's been unseasonably hot early in the year. We haven't had a lot of rain. I just was wondering if the museum, and it's all over the national press, right? Wildfires in California, et cetera. I'm just wondering if we've done anything about the impact of fire across, the ages on natural history. I think it'd be really interesting. So just throw that out there as an idea.
Yeah,
Um,
I think what we can do is address that in the Research and Collections Committee, because Lisa, you are very astute in that there are bits of our archaeology program that looks at historic burns and how that shaped the environment and
yeah,
how Native Virginians would have shaped the environment themselves. Cal and his team, when the Shenandoah National Park, this was a while ago now, maybe 2018. I can't really remember. But when the Shenandoah National Park caught on fire, he was amongst one of the first people to go in after the burn. And he started setting out insect traps in burned and unburned areas.
right.
And followed the succession and change over time. And there was one other one that CHML, of course, they were actively involved working with the Los Angeles Department of Arts and Culture in terms of mapping out for them cultural heritage sites that would have been damaged by that, just like they did with, say, locally with Hurricane Helene and so forth. So we do
Right.
have pieces, and this goes back to connecting RNC to contemporary issues and to the other strategic point of storytelling. So I'll work with Ben
Yeah.
to you kind of make a synopsis of it, because you are right. It's something that we're talking about, and I think
Yeah. Yeah.
the front row center in the news here this spring because of the super El Nino and just kind of the dire straits that some of our forests are in.
Yeah. Just a thought. Could be really interesting. Not really an ask, but just more of a brainstorm.
Yeah.
That could also be a powerful storytelling opportunity, which I
Yeah.
know is part of the strategic plan, and just
Yeah.
taking science and an appreciation of our ecosystem to another level. So not just that, fire damages
Right.
things, but the role that it plays in maintaining healthy ecosystems.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's all I got.
Thank you. I think you're muted, Melanie.
I am. You're welcome. Any updates, Joe, from you or staff or anything else that's come up?
Gosh, some random updates. I know you'll hear coming out of the RNC committee a lot of new work that's being done with new species that the invertebrate lab has uncovered. So they're continuing to work on that. There have been some substantial publications that have come out that, when I say substantial, these are some big publications that the team has put together. So that's really interesting. Adam Pritchard has an assistant. He's a local educator that we basically brought on as a part-timer, and we've got some money that we can, through the foundation, that we can extend him through the summer. He's been taking, you guys all remember Tanny Trachelos from the exhibits, right? It's that long neck lizard from Solite Quarry. It's about this long, and it's got the big curved neck on the fossils, right? So we're one of the few museums, there's very few museums that have any, and we have probably 95% of all known specimens of this kind of enigmatic genus of lizard from right after the Great Permian extinction. And so, but it's a beautiful fossil as it is. But what they've been doing has been so cool. They sent some of their specimens off to an industrial CT scanner, and they got these three-dimensional scans of the bone and the rock. And you can't really prep the rock out the way the shale is formed. You can't prep the bones out so you have individual bones. They're just left as impressions. But they're able to get these 3D models. And what Josh brings to the table is the technical expertise. He's been basically extracting digitally the bones from these fossils, and then he's now printing them out one at a time. It's a very tedious process. He's printing them out one at a time on our 3D printer. And so we're going to create the first ever three-dimensional kind of reconstruction of Tanny Trachelos. You know how to spell that, right?
I got
So,
it.
okay, I'm sure. So there's some really exciting things there. And I'll just say with Christy, and the team, they've just been killing it. This is their first year, of course, doing 2 sessions of homeschool Wednesdays. So they do an afternoon and a morning session. All of them were full. There's a waiting list for them, and it's gone very smoothly. So we basically doubled the capacity of what we can do, and that's just gone really well. So yeah, those are a few things. We're worrying poor Lila to death as the new person, giving her projects and and whatnot. But she's handled it pretty well, I think. So not only is she really knee deep in the Young Explorers Center, but she's done a number of other smaller projects like the VA 250 exhibit, like some exhibit maintenance and support in the galleries and so forth. So what am I missing, folks? What's the kind of cool things?
Bridgerton was wildly successful. That picked up.
Oh, Bridgerton,
yeah, the whole crowd and everybody. So got some really good news coverage out of that here locally.
And I mean, I think the people who didn't dress up stood out, so, so everybody was dressed in their, what was the period?
Regency era.
The Regency era clothing and so forth. And it was a very nice night. We had people travel from hours away to come join us. I mean, we had people I didn't recognize, like, so who are you? Right. And they're like, we heard about this. We wanted to buy our clothes. So they came down and acted it up, and then Robbie did the I don't know what he did.
He was the queen.
He queened somebody. Well, he was the queen. No, the diamond. He gave
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
Diamond of
he
the
gave out the
season.
diamond of the season. Yeah.
Yeah, he did a whole ceremony. As it turns out, he had no idea, but he actually presented or dubbed someone the diamond of the season, who is the girlfriend of one of our volunteers and periodic part-time educators. So that was just a lot of fun. But it was a great way to connect with the community, and just interesting to see how Martinsville evolves. My biggest headache came after the event. It had nothing to do with the booze that we served. Right. The biggest thing was that there was another organization that ran their big, even though they knew the date of our event, they chose our event date to run their big gala. And it was just this big internal thing. People called me up Sunday saying, oh, I wanted to be there, but I had to go to this one. And, blah, blah, blah. And so we were working behind the scenes to try to calm everyone's nerves. But we had over 150 people at the event. I know for a fact the other gala went really well, and I just think it shows that this is just a different time. We all don't have to create our little boundaries, our sandboxes and stuff. That we can run these events and run them well. We don't want to purposely compete with others, right? That's really not the way to go. But I just think it shows that with the quality of event that we run, that we can survive that environment just fine. So you asked Melanie, you got it. That's kind of some of the stuff going on.
No, that's great. Thank you. And the pictures were lovely. Enjoyed looking at those. And just, really just appreciate staff's time. The photos were great. And it's very necessary that we take time to talk about things that we may never see. And it's just being a good steward of the museum and the funds and just, natural history in general. So we spend a lot of time talking about what we're doing tomorrow or the next month, but it was quite helpful just to hear about thoughts of, long-term planning and being strategic. So I appreciate everyone there and your input and anyone else that provided that to help you put that together. So thanks again. And if there's nothing further, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And I second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey, Melanie, before you leave,
Yeah,
we have
sure.